All right, guys, Murph's here. And today I want to talk about some considerations you should make or take into account at least whenever it is that you are introducing someone into the firearms community. Hi, the puppy dog decided to come by and say hello. Let's hope she doesn't get tangled on the cables this time. There we go. All right, so there's a good possibility that if you're watching gun content on YouTube, that you are the gun expert in your circle of friends, in your family, perhaps in your relationships, whatever it is that it may be. You are somebody who's considered to be the most knowledgeable person that somebody else knows. And at some point, they are going to approach you about taking them shooting. And there are a lot of things that you have to take into account for this because you have become their point of contact with the firearms community. And all too often, we in the firearms community do stuff that makes us look bad. And how we introduce people into the firearms community should not be a part of that. We have to keep in mind that any thought, movement, belief, idea is never more than a generation or two away from extinction. So how it is that we bring people into the Second Amendment, into the firearms community, is a major part of keeping it alive. Regardless of the fact that these are inalienable rights, we are never that far from the possibility of somebody redetermining what inalienable means in this case. Now, I think it's spelled out pretty clearly in the Constitution, but there are a lot of people who seem to disagree, and this is your opportunity to be able to make that good impression, to be able to show them why they want to express their inalienable rights, why they want to have firearms, and why they consider these things to be good. Now, all too often in the firearms community, I'm getting on a little bit of a tangent, but all too often in the firearms community, we like to point fingers at anti-gun politicians and stuff like that and talk about how they utilize the wrong terminology and all that kind of stuff, as though this sort of gotcha moment of you said clip instead of magazine actually matters. In this case, it doesn't, because the public that they're speaking to is not that educated on firearms. So when they use buzzwords, when they use emotional type attacks, it actually works on people who are not that knowledgeable and don't care to be that knowledgeable in that subject to begin with. And that becomes very problematic for people who are knowledgeable and understand the importance of these measures. So, your opportunity to introduce someone to firearms is your chance to be able to secure yet another person who is now more knowledgeable and able to go, that doesn't sound right, I don't like how this is going, I'm going to vote differently. And that's a big part of this. It's kind of a grassroots approach to this, but it's a very important grassroots approach. There are two things we have to keep in mind in this overall discussion. One is safe firearms handling practices, safety overall, and then fun. These two ideas, one is not ahead of the other. They are of the exact same importance. These are paramount. That the person who's going out with you has fun and that they get taught and demonstrate safe firearms handling practices. Now, as we go through this process, the first thing we need to take into account is removing our ego. Somebody's first time out shooting, or perhaps somebody's first time out shooting in a while, they're not that confident in what it is that they're doing. This is not the time to introduce an exceedingly powerful weapon system. This is not the time to break out the 10 gauge and hand it to a 10-year-old kid, or hand your girlfriend, your 90-pound girlfriend, a 500 Magnum revolver. This is not the time. This is also not the time to decide to go all drill sergeant on them or something like that and scream at them the entire time they're working through shooting a firearm. That is not fun, and that is potentially an unsafe environment. This is going to really encourage them to not want to come back, and that's the opposite of what we want to have happen here. Now, also, if you're doing stuff in order to introduce some comedy, so you hand them that super powerful handgun and they get knocked on their butt when they shoot it, that person's not coming back. You have embarrassed them at this point. They are now the butt of the jokes, and they feel like they are being attacked. And rightfully so. And if you're doing that to your significant other, you guys should probably seek therapy. I am no marriage counselor or relationship advisor by any account, but that is something that you should, especially your significant other, should be paying attention to, because that is not positive outcomes there. We have to remove ego. Even though you perhaps learned in that environment where you were kind of getting picked on, or you were getting yelled at as you were supposed to be doing all this type of stuff, that is not what these people are trying to get to. We're not taking them out and trying to, on their first range trip, get them to accomplish sub 3-second bill drills or one reload ones in 1.5 seconds or something like that. That is not what's going to happen here. All they need to be focused on are shooting fundamentals and safety fundamentals and having a good time. Trying to advance them too far too fast, while it might be super fun for you to try to get a chance at being able to develop that type of shooter, You're not at that point, and you need to pace it appropriately. That is a huge part of any type of instruction that you're doing, is making sure that you're starting at the appropriate level for the course that you're teaching, and then you're moving at the pace of your students instead of the pace that you think they should be moving at. Not if you want them to do this safely and actually learn something. Another aspect of this is that we want to build good habits right off the bat. So not teaching them to flinch whenever it is that they shoot the firearm, we're working with raw talent at this point. This is brand new clay, and we can form it into whatever it is we want proficiency-wise. We do not want to go ahead and build in flaws, build in bad habits that they then have to spend the rest of their time trying to overcome should they want to maintain interaction with the shooting sports, which is kind of the goal here. So, remove your ego. The second thing I would implore you to do would be to establish their background. Try to figure out where it is that they fall on the spectrum. Have they maybe shot a firearm a couple of times with a previous boyfriend, but they didn't really learn a whole lot in the process? Has their dad taken them shooting, but now they're coming out shooting with you and your kids, and maybe they didn't get taught the best firearm safety handling practices or something along those lines. Try to figure out where they're at. Specifically, what you want to identify beforehand is, do they have a good grasp of safe firearm handling fundamentals? Because if they don't, you need to establish that before the range trip. Now, when it comes down to shooting fundamentals and all that kind of stuff, if you really wanted to, you could go ahead and do some like dry fire practice with them and all that kind of stuff. But generally, I just try to figure out what somebody's like overall experience level is, so I can build in my mind A, whether or not they understand shooting like safe handling fundamentals, and then B, what I expect them to be able to achieve out on the range. And then when I get out on the range, I take that time to evaluate whether or not their claimed experience is matching with their demonstrated capability, with their demonstrated action. That's a very, very important thing, because you can run into somebody who's like, oh, well, I did Boy Scouts as a kid, and we shot 22 rifles and all that kind of stuff, so I totally understand shooting fundamentals. And then they get out there, and first off, they like stare down the barrel, and then after you correct them on that, they shoot, a giant grouping at 25 yards. And you're like, you have no idea what's going on. Let's go ahead and back up and break down what it is that we have going on here. You set the expectation. You correct if they don't have the safe handling fundamentals down. You go ahead and you correct that. And then you go and assess their actual demonstrated capability out on the range. All right, now I tailor my range session with these people as to what their interests are. If they're wanting to get into AR-15s, they want to buy a rifle, they want to do stuff like that, then I'm going to bring out something that's very similar to what it is that they want to get into, but also a .22 rifle. If somebody has either bought them a handgun or they have just bought a handgun, then I'm going to try to bring out a .22 version of their style of gun. So if they bought a semi-auto, I'm going to bring out my Ruger Standard. If they were given or bought a snub-nosed revolver, I'm going to bring out my H&R Model 950, previously reviewed on the channel, link in the description, in order for them to be able to practice on that particular handgun before we move over to either the gun that they bought or something that replicates what it is that they have an interest in. I'm a big advocate for going with very small caliber or gauge guns to begin with. So if we're out shooting shotguns, if it's a young kid, start off with 410s. If it's a lightly built person, man, woman, doesn't matter, start off with 410s. But even if there's someone who's a little bit more broad, maybe a little bit more muscular or something along those lines, I might still not go past a 20 gauge. Depending on what it is that we're doing. When it comes to rifles, I have a 10-22, and that is a introductory firearm for those who want to shoot rifles with me. Just like I have a variety of .22 handguns so that we can go out and learn fundamentals on those before we move to larger caliber guns. Semi-autos and revolvers, I have both available to me. I like starting off with light recoiling options so that we can go ahead and get those safe handling fundamentals and then introduce shooting fundamentals and really drill shooting fundamentals with something that doesn't have a lot of recoil, that's not super loud and potentially concussive to the firer, and allows them to get comfortable behind a firearm. So that way, when I introduce a more heavily recoiling option, even if it's just a 9mm or something along those lines, something that has actual muzzle flip to contend with, something that you're going to need a little bit more recoil management with, I can demonstrate that the fundamentals that we already established on the 22 transfer to the larger caliber gun. Now, you might have to be a little bit more on that recoil management. You might have to grip the gun a little bit harder, but you will still be able to effectively manage recoil and make good hits like you did with the 22. And that's the key thing here. That's the takeaway that I want to make sure everybody has when they go shooting with me. It's not the caliber, it is all about the fundamentals.
You're doing great.
It hit me in the face. That's why you wear glasses.
I think that's a very important object lesson, what it is that we're doing, and that is why I've set it up in the way that I have. And I've done this many times. I've introduced many shooters, and I felt like I've been able to build a really good baseline for what it is that they have going on and not introduce too many bad habits. Now, the next thing you guys need to take into account is battery life. Just because you go out every weekend and you dump 1,000 rounds through your guns and you run around and do all this crazy stuff does not mean that they're up to the same task. You also need to take weather conditions into account, as well as snacks and things along those lines that might help continue their battery life and what it is that you have going on. You go out to the range and you're used to going from sun up to sundown on just like some granola bars and some water in any weather condition. That's great for you. It's probably not going to work out for that other person. You want to encourage them to dress properly for the weather. You want to make sure that you have plenty of water, plenty of snacks, maybe something kind of sugary or something like that in order to be able to boost energy along the way. However it is that you want to break that down, just make sure that you have something and you observe that person carefully so that once they get tired, once they're no longer to hang on to that heavier recoiling firearm that you've moved them up to, or perhaps once it just seems like they're generally pooped, maybe they didn't get good sleep the night before, maybe they just have some other stuff going on, or whatever it is that it may be, you account for their battery life and then end the session sooner if necessary. That's fine. You met the goals today of making sure that they got a good introduction to handgun, to shooting, to firearms in general. And that is the job well done. It's a very important facet of what it is that we're doing here is recognizing the battery life, because I see that messed up quite often out on the ranges. Now guys, one more time, I want to go ahead and emphasize the importance of the safe handling characteristics, because here's the thing. There's a video that was going around not too long ago of a young lady shooting an AK-47 from her hip. And at one point she kind of hit a point of confusion. I don't know if she emptied the magazine and she wasn't sure what to do next, or if she was just done shooting and didn't really know how to let go of the gun safely. But she winds up pivoting towards the cameraman, and I can only assume the assembled group that was out there shooting with her fingers still on the trigger and the firearm pointed at everybody. Absolutely, this is a major safety violation. Everyone should be very concerned that they almost got shot. However, I don't solely blame her. Now, if anyone had been shot legally, she would have absolutely been to blame. She was the one holding the firearm. However, she was not being adequately instructed nor monitored in order to avoid that situation. I solidly point the finger at the most knowledgeable person / whoever it is who brought her to the range and handed her that firearm. They are very responsible for that situation. I don't know about equally, because she could have kept it pointed down range and asked for help, but they definitely played a portion in not being as instructive as they could have been. And that's the type of situation that we're trying to avoid here. We do not want that to happen. And we also need to make sure that we take ownership of those things should they happen. But that's kind of a whole separate conversation. I don't want to get into that rabbit hole right now. All right, guys. I think that pretty much covers my thoughts on this particular subject. I hope you guys found this useful, and don't miss the opportunity to take someone out shooting. Don't miss the opportunity to be able to perpetuate a positive view of the firearms community. All right. That's enough. With that, that's pretty much what I got. Have a good day.